Adrian N. Breitfelder, City Clerk, you are hereby directed to call a special session of the City Council to be held on Wednesday, March 9th, 2022 at 6:30 PM in the Historic Federal Building for the purpose of conducting public hearings on certain fiscal year 2023 department budgets.
Thank you. Good evening, and welcome to a special session of the Dubuque City Council for March 9th, 2022. As a reminder to our participants, you can provide in-person input or virtual audio and written input during tonight's public hearings. Input options during the live meeting include: in-person attendees may approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any public input for the public hearing they would like to speak to. Remote attendees can log into GoToMeeting using the login links, phone numbers, and access code that appear on the broadcast and live stream and posted on the front page of the meeting agenda. This option includes audio input and written chat input. If you are participating via computer, indicate which public hearing you would like to speak to in the chat function. If you are participating via phone, indicate that you would like to speak when phone lines are unmuted. All phone lines will be unmuted during each public hearing, and city staff will determine the speaking order of the participants. All comments, whether in person or virtual, must be accompanied by a name and address. Additionally, written public input is accepted by contacting the City Council directly from the city's webpage at www.cityofdubuque.org/councilcontacts and through the City Clerk's office email at ctyclerk@cityofdubuque.org. This information will be reiterated during the meeting. Attendance for the session is as follows: Mayor Kavanaugh,
Here.
Council members Farber,
Here.
Jones,
Here.
Resnick,
Here.
Roussel,
Here.
Sprank,
Here.
City Manager Van Milligan.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Kavanaugh, I will turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you, Adrian. So our first public hearing tonight is the Housing and Community Development Department, and they have one improvement package requested and one recommended. So, Alexis, I'll invite you on up. I think you're going to be spending a little bit of time with us tonight, it looks like.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Not a lot. Alexis Steyer, your Housing and Community Development Director. So for our budget tonight, the first thing I actually want to kick off, and I did bring my team with me. You see my face all the time, and I don't do this alone. I do this with a lot of people. And so I wanted to really introduce them and get their faces out to the City Council and to the public, because they're who you deal with on actually a more basis that you don't know more often. So I'd like to start with the Assistant Director that you actually authorized in 2019 for the Housing and Community Development Department. Mike Belmont is here, and he is our Assistant Director. We have Gina Hodgson, who runs our Section 8 programming. And then we have Ben, who is our Deputy Code Official. He runs all your inspectors and your rental licensing work with all your building inspectors as well. And then we have Angela Ventress, and she's one of our newer grant project managers. So she runs all of your lead and healthy homes and all of the HUD grants that we continually have gotten this year, which is amazing. And then we have Maddie Haverland, who helps run our CDBG, and you will actually see her on March 23rd to do the CDBG budget. So those are the people who support me every day and get everything done that you're about to hear about. So and I'm going to move that, sorry. As we move forward. So the Housing and Community Development Department is very focused on our residents, our direct services. We work with our nonprofits to make sure we can get out to the community, and we're there to meet the community need, the individual community need. We strive to create that viable community and provide safe, affordable housing. So that is our main mission for the Housing Department. Another focus, and you'll see this throughout my entire presentation, is the equitable community of choice. We are always collecting data and making sure that we're reviewing policy to ensure that every single one of our residents has the same opportunities as our other residents. Some of those examples are housing choice vouchers, our holders. We want to make sure that they have access across the city to get access to food and the same access to transportation. We review our policies to ensure that we don't have a disparate impact on any of our minorities. And that policy review is specific, and we do it on a regular basis. We pull up a policy and we make sure that this has not created a disparate impact for our residents. So we are working on this on a daily basis. You're going to see it throughout my slides, so I'm not going to go further here. So the Housing Community Development Department is made up of several divisions. We have our administration, and that's kind of what kind of runs everything. But we also have our neighborhood revitalization, where we work on rehabbing houses. We have our safe and healthy homes, where we inspect rentals. We have our sustainable living side. That's the Section 8, the housing choice vouchers. And then we also have our construction services, and those are your new permits, your building permits, inspections on that side. Keep doing that. Our one improvement package that is recommended is actually a change in FTEs. So we are recommending that we decrease our family self-sufficiency coordinator position. We have gone without that position this year. It became vacant, and we left it vacant to see if we could make that work. We do see that our program is still working and very viable in the family self-sufficiency model, and you'll see that we've actually rebranded and is now the next, you'll see that we've rebranded with a new name. So we do still have one family self-sufficiency coordinator, so we are dropping this one FTE. And then we are adding, requesting to add a confidential account clerk on the inspection and construction services side. This is a person who is able to answer the phone. A lot of the complaints that we've received this year are that it's hard to get a hold of our construction services side. People need guidance on what they need a permit for. They need to be able to get a hold of us to pull that permit and continue on with their work. And so we have that position that we are looking to add. It actually ends up being a net savings. Family self-sufficiency coordinator is a little bit higher wage. So it is a net savings in our overall budget. Some highlights from 2022, we were awarded 3 large new federal grants from HUD. The Older Adult Home Modification Program for $1 million, the Lead and Healthy Homes Program, this is the next round for 4.2, and Healthy Homes Production Grant, which HUD has not released for a while, but we were able to get that, and then they released it for $2 million. We rebranded the Family Self-Sufficiency Program to Next Level Savings Program, and we're doing more direct outreach with that program now. We also completed some of the energy efficient housing inventory with our rental inspections, where we look to see what the installation's like, what type of windows they have, and we actually complete that in the inventory with the rental license. And then we are now on target to meet our 5-year rental cycle, which is the first we've been able to report, actually. So we're on target. Some of our future initiatives coming up, we're still working on a renter education program. We've been training in the background to get people ready to kind of launch a renter's education program. We're also looking at additional contractor education. We're about to hold a contractors meeting at the Grand River Center just to increase our communication. What are the changes in our code? What's happening? How do we communicate with each other? So we're opening those lines of communication. Streamlining some of our online processes and forms. With COVID, we really had to go, virtual, and we want to keep that going. We see a lot of benefit with that. And we're also implementing a new software with Section 8, and this actually gives us the capability to track some new data, which is really exciting. Our last software was very limiting in what we could track with housing choice vouchers. It's going to be very robust, and we're very excited about that. Our overall budget, our property tax support is $800,000, just a little over that, which is about $12 for the average homeowner. So we're going to start with rental programs and services, and these are our affordable housing creation and our assisted housing programs. So overall, we had 10 projects that City Council has seen and approved for the low-income housing tax credits. 5 of those have actually moved forward. It's a very competitive process. They don't always win. The challenges come up even if they do. So we've got 5 that will create 218 new affordable housing units, and that's since 2016. So the ones that are operating, 15th Street Apartments has 36 affordable units. We have Marquette Hall with 28 affordable units. And then we have Applewood, the last Applewood that was on the street for 60 units, and they actually were started operation in 2017. So those 60 are up and full. And we have the 2 new ones out on Radford Road, and they're being built now. The pictures on your left are exactly where they are today. The top one is also built by Horizon, who builds Applewood. and they are doing 44 senior units, and that is the, when you drive by Radford, it's the one in the back of the two, so further away from the road. And then you've got Gardens of Dubuque, which is in the front, and that is actually family housing. It is low income, and they have units from 1 bedroom all the way up to 3 bedrooms. So that's a up and coming family on the west end, which we're really excited about. I kept a little bit older picture on the right there for you when they were breaking ground, just to show you that they are very close to Roosevelt Middle School. So that's the middle school right there in the background. It's as they're erected, it's right behind. So it is a great access to Roosevelt Middle School, and obviously Carver is right behind that. So great access to schools. We also have our assisted housing program. So our assisted housing program consists of what people have heard of as Section 8, and that's just the federal code. We have housing choice vouchers, which are portable and can go anywhere. They stay with the tenant, and they can move around to different units with that voucher. They can also move to different jurisdictions, so they don't have to stay in Dubuque. That brings us, we serve about 850 households a month, and that brings about $6.5 million into the economy in Dubuque. That is $6.5 million. We actually contribute about 4.5 of that, HUD does, and the tenants are bringing $2 million of that in. So it's a combination of the two. We also have project-based vouchers, which are ones that do not travel with the tenant. They stay with the unit. So you have to live in that unit to get the assistance, and we have those out at the Rose of Dubuque, which is an assisted living for seniors location. And we also have the VA supportive housing, which is called VASH vouchers, which are vouchers that act like housing choice vouchers, but are only accessible for veterans who are homeless. So we're able to get those. We just got that program last year, and we're got it again this year for a renewal. So we are able to continue to serve those veterans with those vouchers. Another piece of our department is the homeowner programs. So we have first-time home buyers. So you can have from $5,000 to $25,000 assistance and down payments if you're a low or moderate income resident. And those down payments are 0% interest. They are loans. Some are due at sale. Some you pay $40 to $60 a month, but they are affordable for the income level of the resident. And as you see there, we've had 12 participants. 5 of those were female head of households. Pictures are actually of some of their houses that they were able to buy. We also have the Housing Choice Voucher Home Ownership Program that falls under this. If you hold a Housing Choice Voucher, you can use that voucher to purchase a home. You do not have to rent. It's not a requirement. And we actually encourage this program. We try to get people ready to move into home ownership. You don't lose your voucher. They will pay your mortgage instead of your rent. So tries to help build that wealth. We currently have 9, but we do have 9 participants using that program. We do have 1 that is ready for their home, and so we expect that we'll have 10 within the next fiscal year. A couple of things that we also do with first-time homebuyers is when we rehab a house ourselves, so we have other programs such as the True North, the Purchase Rehab Resale program, where we take a house and you see dilapidated kind of before. There was a fire in the back, and in the front, this is 2033 Washington. And we rehab it, and then our first-time home buyers have access to that home first. They get priority to purchase that home from us. And so we did have a first-time home buyer, and you'll see the after on the right of what that house looks like. That burned-out structure in the back was taken to the ground. It was not salvageable and became a really great parking spot for that location. So we also do homeowner rehabilitation. This is, you can get up to $25,000 in assistance. Again, 0% interest. These are loans to help you kind of renovate your home as a homeowner at low income. These sometimes can be accessibility for if you suddenly have some mobility issues. It can be general remodeling of your kitchen and your bathroom that are just starting to deteriorate, or it can be getting up code violations and dealing with those. We also, under this program, have the Energy Savings Program. It's a CDBG-funded program that can help replace water heaters and furnaces and boilers to increase the efficiency of those appliances in the home and decrease the utility cost for our low-mod income residents. We also have the Windows Program, which will help reimburse the cost for emergency escape and rescue openings that do not meet the current code. It's up to $400 per window for that. We also have a home workshop, so we try to get our first-time home buyers ready to purchase homes. And so this is a 4-week program, and it teaches residents how to work on their credit, how home insurance works, how mortgages work, how to navigate with a bank, purchasing a home, what a mortgage looks like, and also maintaining that home once you do purchase the home. With that, we have a credit repair program that we work on with the PACO, and they help residents that need credit repair before they can actually purchase the home and be eligible for a mortgage. We contribute to that program directly for if they've completed certain steps, they can actually access money to help pay credit debt that's keeping their scores lower. And it also pays to help the program to kind of teach you how to get the credit score up. So we also have an inspection and construction services division. We do a lot at the housing department, so this is just another one of our divisions. These are more of our permits. So our single-family home builds, this is the 10-year horizon. We have been decreasing in the amount of single-family homes that are being built in the city of Dubuque. We are working on trying to increase that number. So in 2020 and 2021, we've seen 40 new builds, and our 10-year average is still sitting at 78, which you'll see in the Tri-County area here. We are still top in the new builds for the 5-year average. We did decrease a little bit in that category, and we've seen Dubuque County, Piasta, and Asbury increasing their numbers. Our building permits, we usually present these by fiscal year, but I did them by calendar year this year to show the recovery from COVID. So in 2020, our building season obviously is when it's warm, our biggest building season, and COVID hit right over that season. And so by fiscal year, you didn't see this big jump, but what you see in 2020 is we did actually have a decrease in the number of building permits, and it was a significant decrease. We have seen in 2021 that recovery and actually above and beyond. So you see people, you probably see it when you're driving the streets, people are doing a lot to their homes, they are building new things. We are seeing that, and so our inspectors are out working really hard to make sure that we're building those things up to code. So then on the rental licensing side, so we have about 11,000 residential units that are licensed as rental units. We have this year we did just over 3,000 inspections of those units, which puts us on target for that 5-year cycle. We're over our target. The target would be 2,760 for 5 years, but we were behind. So we are working on catching up. We have all of our inspectors trained. They're all out on the street by themselves. So that is why you're seeing that number increase. It is amazing that we've got that, and we'd love to keep that going. So we have not had any changes in our licensing fees or our inspection fees in the last 2 years. So we started January last year for licensing fees and 2 years for the new inspection fees. Your inspection fees are 0 if you can pass the first time. So we do encourage and have a checklist on our website to get into your unit ahead of time and see if you can get those violations fixed before we come to the unit. So we have a tiered inspection program. We've had this since July of 2018. But it is actually going quite well. We do get to focus on some of the units that are continually non-compliant, and the units that are doing well and compliant when we go for inspections don't have to be seen as often by your inspectors. So this tiered inspection program is working quite well. We have not completed any Tier 1 inspections. This is because those that qualified in Tier 1 that were coming up in this year became priority category. So what priority category designation is if you had 3 municipal infractions within a 12-month period, you can become a priority category designation. To get a municipal infraction, you actually have to have code violations consistently for a significant amount of time. The inspector goes in, sees the violation, gives time to fix. If you're making any progress at all, they continually give you time to fix the violations. They have to have been making no effort to get a municipal infraction, and they have done it 3 times in a 12-month period. So those on the right are those that are priority category designated. I have Ayman Al-Qaidi as green. He was designated last year. We did have a agreement that he is no longer a priority category. However, we have several municipal infractions in court right now, and we do anticipate he will be back on that list. So I did not want to just delete that section there. We had a couple new join the list. Ricky Potabom at the bottom. He has 13 units. We are currently rent abating 6 of those. He is not renting those with a valid license. And Larry Jackson at the bottom also increased the number of units that he owns, and he has licensed none of them, and that is because they have too many code violations for us to actually issue a license. So although a priority category designation is working for those that you see on top, the preems have decreased the amount of units. They're more responsive to us, they're more responsive to their tenants. It does not work for all instances, and so we are using that new ordinance that was passed to do some rent abatement to try to encourage movement on those ones that it's really not working for. We have Safe and Healthy Homes programs. So these are our big grants from HUD that we were talking about. We got our new round of Lead and Healthy Homes, $4.2 million, and we're going to use that for 106 units to make those lead safe. This is for income eligible, so low and moderate income homeowners or tenants, and they just have to have children under the age of 6 or children under the age of 6 that visit frequently to qualify for that program. We also got the Healthy Homes Production Grant for the $2 million. This addresses health hazards in the home, such as mold remediation, moisture intrusion, trip and fall hazards. There's 24 other health risks that we're allowed to use. I mean, lead is one of them, but since we have a Lead and Healthy Homes grant, we do not focus much on that with this grant. But it will look a lot like the stuff we did for the B Branch Healthy Homes. So you see the before and afters of B Branch Healthy Homes. This is exactly what we would do with the Healthy Homes Production Grant. So it also has the advocate resource referral. So the VNA is helping team with us to do those referrals and to evaluate the situation within the home to make sure that the residents are also getting resources. We also got a brand new older adult home modification programs, brand new for HUD and brand new for the city of Dubuque. We got a $1 million grant. This helps make changes to a home that promote aging in place. These are things like installing grab bars, things like cutouts for tubs to make it so less of a trip hazard. There's an occupational therapist that goes into the home that decides what things would help with their mobility. So it's pretty intensive work with the resident for their specific needs. We are working with Four Mounds on a new partnership for a new job training. They're bringing a job training coach in with a couple people who have completed the NICC certificate program, and they will complete these homes for us to get them trained up in the field, hopefully giving them more job opportunities as they exit that program. We also deal with vacant and abandoned buildings. We do quarterly exterior inspections once they've been identified, and annual interior inspections to ensure the safety of our first responders. You are required to get the exterior up to code, but the interior is not a requirement. It is something we're working towards. So what the City Council passed in 2021 is a little bit of an ordinance change that requires, if you own a vacant and abandoned home, you must submit a plan for what you're going to do with that property, whether it's sale, renovation, whatever that is. It also provided us a revolving due date for the licensing of these buildings. And that actually helps our residents, just make it easier for them. That I don't need to pay 3 months later after I just paid a prorated amount, and so it just made it an easy use for our residents. Any that are not responsive, we have been petitioning for ownership. So if you're just leaving a vacant abandoned building and we can't get a hold of you, you're not responding, we will go to the courts to petition for ownership to get it into somebody's hands that will do something with the property. With that, when we do get some of these, we actually use partners to help us rehab those homes. So we have Affordable Housing Network and we have Four Mounds Heart Program that are actively rehabbing these homes for us. You see 2033 Washington, that was one of that we got help with on a partner, and now we are also working on like 1938 Washington. Ani's out there. We have one up on Walnut. Basically, these are the dilapidated to the point they haven't been occupied in a very long time, and these are not marketable for any developer. It is not going to be something that we can sell and someone else wants it. So they turn these into homes that can be a home ownership. We also have sometimes duplexes, so they'll turn it into home ownership and then a responsible rent-to-own type situation, or they'll use the other side as a rental to help support the low mod income to own a duplex. So Ani does that for us. Ani is also working on, they had purchased the Bishop Block. That's on 90 Main Street. It's a large, as you see, large building there. And there's several renovations that need to be done. This is low mod income. They have several housing choice voucher residents. And they're working on the renovation now. They've already done some of the main areas, and they're now working through some of the heating, the roof, the bigger stuff that needs to be taken on there. The Four Mountains Heart Program not only has the job training that we're talking about, they have the KID program. And this is through, the Dubuque Community School District partnership, and then the city supports it as well as Four Mountains. And this is where there's young adults that are coming down from high school and they're training into the trades. And so they use this as their classroom. The city actually supplies a home for them to use for the year, and they renovate the homes. And you've seen them. We had 2 down on Central, 2243 and 2247. We had 1 on West Locust. So they've been churning through homes for us, and when they are done, the workmanship is amazing. These are better than what we see from our contractors. They do amazing work, and it is so fun. They are so proud of this. We love bringing city council in for our open houses because they just beam. They are so proud of it. It's a great program. We see a lot of success here. We also have our safe and healthy housing. That we have to partner to make headway with. So our Dubuque area landlords, they're ones that we meet with monthly to make sure that we're all working towards the same goals. We all want the safe, affordable housing. We all want access for all of our residents. And we make sure that we're working together for those goals. Also, we've got Dubuque Real Estate Investment Group, which is a group that's just come up in the past 2 years. Their focus is the same thing as ours, start rehabilitating some of those historic buildings and have that responsible home ownership. We work with the Friends of Fair Housing as well, and then our neighborhood associations. We want to make sure we know what's going on in the neighborhoods and what is needed from a housing perspective and from a needs perspective for the residents. For our capital improvements, these just support the things we were just talking about. So our home ownership grants, our North End neighborhood reinvestment where we rehab homes. There is a child care assistance. You will get to hear more about this on March 23rd because it is a CDBG program. We have ADA assistance. We have grants to help people make their buildings more ADA accessible. We have our rental rehab programs so that we can get some affordable. When you do a rehab, a lot of times the market rate will increase its rent. If we have this program, they keep their rent affordable to make sure that we aren't losing access to units that were affordable in the past when there's a rehab. Obviously, a first-time home buyer program, the credit program that we talked about, and so all those are getting refunded through the capital side. Some of our performance measures that we talk about, we do track a lot of data in housing, and so I can't go through them all tonight. But some of the highlights, we are getting people through that first-time homebuyer program. We're having success there. Quite a few people getting through successfully purchasing a home. Washington neighborhood's one of our focuses for our housing trust fund, and so you'll see there we have the number of homeowners through the Washington Neighborhood Homebuyers Program as well as the first-time homebuyers program. So we have 2 consecutive ones. Basically, on our grant side, we do have the B Branch Healthy Homes. You did not see that in this slide. It does end this fiscal year, so it does not go into fiscal year 23. So we are kind of maxing out on these outcomes. We are hitting the number of units. We are going to meet all those numbers. We actually exceeded them, so we're excited about that. For our livable neighborhoods and housing, some of the things that we're tracking is the number of landlords that accept housing choice vouchers. This is one of those things that we've been visiting over and over again, trying to make headway. So this year, we did a lot of work sending out mailers directly to our landlords. It went with their rental licenses. It went again in July of 21. We are almost ready to release our landlord video, and that is focused on testimonials from landlords that currently accept, what it's like to accept the program, and it's a little bit of a myth debunker as well. So we're getting ready to release that. So we're really hoping that we can move this needle a little bit more. You see we didn't move it a lot in this first year from what we're estimating, and that's just because we had a late rental license release, and that's where we'd gather our data. So we released it in September, and then we released it again in January. That's not enough room or time for a change. So we just sent out our rental licenses, and we're getting all of those back for this year, so we'll have a full year of data that will be coming to you soon. We are hoping that we see a little bit more movement on that. We tried the landlord incentives. The incentive programs provided a bonus for those that never accepted before and were going to accept. It also provided rent loss protection for those that wanted to hold a unit for a housing choice voucher holder. We did not see the success with that we expected. And so those programs did not get refunded and are not recommended in this budget. We also have our ADA programs. So this is the number of people that were assisted in the ADA programs. We actually see that increasing. I've had more than this many people already, more than 3 people already wanted to be part of this program this fiscal year. We did, however, in our ISO ratings, get a 4 out of 10. 1 is actually your best, 10 is your worst. So we're, majority of other jurisdictions are at a 4 or 5. Very few rise above that, but we're doing a really good job. This score tells us how we're doing in inspections. Do we inspect to code? Do we have processes for doing that? Do we have enforcement if people aren't doing that? So that's what this rating is giving us for and that is all we have for the Housing and Community Development Department.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Alexis. We're going to open for public comment first, so I'll go to you, Adrian.
At this time, anyone participating in the meeting in person who would like to discuss this public hearing may approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any in-person input for this public hearing. For all remote attendees, please enter your name and address in the chat function and state your question, or state your name and address over the phone when the mayor asks if there is any virtual input for this public hearing. Please begin your input by stating your name and address.
Okay, do we have any public input for the Housing and Community Development presentation? Anybody virtually?
No emails received.
All right, I'll bring it back to the table for discussion then. Yes, Mr. Sprank.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Alexis, thank you for all that you and your team have been doing. I know you've got a lot more to go, but I have a couple quick questions. I was really excited and hoping that more seniors taking advantage of that older adult home modification program yet? Or do we need to get the word out more to them?
So we've sent out over 50 applications for people who are interested already. So our first news release got a lot of interest. That's going to take us a good year to get through all 55 of those. We're only going to serve over, not many more than double that. So we are getting the interest that we need. And I do think we're going to get additional interest as word of mouth gets out within the community that it is successful. We're just getting into our first home now.
So 55 then. That's awesome. Great, thank you. And then my last question is about the new software. You mentioned data, like what type of data are you going to be tracking with that?
So the type of data that we do manually right now, so the demographics of our housing choice voucher holders, demographics of those that have applied, where they live, where they're porting to if they port out, how much time we're spending to do different things within the program, why people have left if they did leave for another jurisdiction instead of taking their voucher somewhere else. It's quite robust. It also is going to be keeping online forms so that residents who are voucher holders can directly update their information, and they do not have to get mailing packets of information and send them back to us and try to navigate that. They can just go online and make the updates. So it is quite a robust system.
Thank you.
There's, yeah, Ms. Farber.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Alexis, and I just really have to give kudos to Ben and to the inspecting team, as I have gone through a few of them within the last few months, and involved with 2 of your inspectors, and they are spot on, they are kind, considerate, and working with us to make some corrections in some of these old brownstones that we do have. And so we were able to rise to the occasion and to complete the inspection, but they are just really outstanding representatives of your division. The question I have relates to the partnerships that you're talking about to rehab some of these vacated, distressed historic buildings, some of them. Do you have ample partnerships in the city? Do you have enough investors willing to step up to help?
When it comes to historic properties, it is a little harder. Ani does do the historic properties, and that's helpful for us because we can kind of filter the historic that way. It's a different skill set. It is something they teach the kids in the HEART program, is the historic nature and to preserve it. But we actually could use more partners in that realm.
Is Heritage Works on the list as an
They are
example?
one of our partners, yes.
Okay,
And as you know, Heritage Work doesn't actually do construction, but they help navigate the funding that comes behind a historic building. It can be very expensive to rehab depending on its state. And so they actually help navigate historic tax credits. And yes, they are one of our partners.
Because they have a great network of investors that are always interested as well. So-
Yes, and whenever we do have a historic building that we needs attention, it may not be something that on the market is very marketable. We actually reach out to Heritage Works and they bring in those partners to bid on that property and tell us what they want to do with it.
Great, because appreciate that very much. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah, Mr. Resnick.
thank you. First of all, the Radford Road project looks beautiful, doesn't it?
It
I mean,
does.
It looks very impressive. So that's fantastic. I noticed that you do a lot of neighborhood revitalization as part of what you do. Now, do you plan to work closely or partnership, do some partnership with the SPANs, the Shared Prosperity and Neighborhood Support? Have you already started working together on that?
Yes, especially when it comes to tracking data, and they're very close. So that office works very closely with our neighborhood associations, who help us identify up-and-coming problems within the neighborhood that are housing or structural, or someone that needs more resources than maybe a neighborhood can help with. So yes, we're already working extremely closely with them.
Fantastic. You mentioned there's a mold remediation, moisture intrusion. You do that as well. Do you work with the Dubuque citizens who have manufactured home as well? Do you?
So manufactured homes that sit on a piece of land that they own can be assisted with federal funds. If they lease the land or the lot that they sit on, they cannot. They're not considered part of our permanent housing stock in the city of Dubuque if it is a manufactured home that sits on a lot that's leased.
I see. Do you see any reason that would be a good thing that we would maybe make our legislative priority? Would that help, or do you think that's probably the right decision to make on that?
It actually is something the city council could consider including into their permanent housing stock, is a manufactured home that sits on a lot that is leased. That is a new legislation from the federal level. And so it is something that we are looking at. It's brand new kind of in the CDBG realm, because CDBG is where we do the rehab of those homes. So it is something that city council could look at, including in their permanent housing.
Maybe after a number of years, 5 or 10 or something, they consider that, this is where I live. And again, maybe Anderson Sansi would, I think that might be very helpful to some people who could use some help with that. Number 4 I have is, I was really happy to hear you say that ineffective programs are dropped. You do a lot of data, and sometimes companies or countries or whatever, they stick with something that why isn't this working? Let's keep working harder at it. It's still not working, and they spend way too long with it. You have great programs you're doing, and so I'm glad to hear that, the ineffective ones that you've really tried at and it's not working, that you're dropping them. So I'm happy to hear that. As far as historic properties, boy, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because what we hear from people who love historic properties is that we do too little, too late. And I know your heart goes out to them, because you wish we could save every historic property, I'm sure. And you mentioned that adjustments were going to be made or considered. Could you tell me about those? What's coming down the pike as far as changes that we might be able to intercept distressed historic properties a little earlier?
A lot of the ordinances and policies that we've just put in place in the last 2 years are starting to do that. Too little, too late. Within the last 50 years, some of those didn't exist, and so vacant properties or historic properties became maybe rentals that just, I'm going to take the money and the rent and I'm not going to maintain. It takes more to maintain a historic structure than it would for a brand new structure. And so now that we have those in places, all the inspections, our vacant abandoned building ordinances, we're catching them sooner. And so we are going to see in the next couple of years those that just were too far gone because we missed them. But we're hoping now we're catching the ones that we can actually save. We're getting in sooner. So that's what we see going forward. The partnerships we've also fostered over the last 2 years, the Heritage Works, the legislative work that Terry Goodman's been working on with the historic tax credits, those have all changed the purview going forward.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I want to ask a quick follow-up, if I may, real quick on Mr. Resnick's question about the manufactured homes, because I'm not sure I understood your answer. Are you saying that this is something that we could actually change as a city council? We don't have to, I mean, this isn't a federal rule based on the regulations and those types of things that we have to work with?
It was a federal rule that you could not do work on a manufactured home. That federal rule did change. I believe the rule was proposed in 2018 and adopted. It takes a year or two to adopt the final rule. And so what it says is you do work on a manufactured home if it's considered part of your permanent housing stock for your city. In the past, we never considered it as permanent housing stock in our city because it can be taken down, it can be taken away from, they can foreclose on a lot and take your home. So we have not in the past, but yes, it is now at the local level allowed to make that part of your permanent housing stock. You would have to delineate what you meant by that, and so we're looking at what those options would be. If it's always been zoned and ready for manufactured homes, and those are what those lots are, maybe that's a consideration, as opposed to those that are one-off on a lot next to a home that's just another lot. So we can look at that, and that's something that we have been starting to look at. CDBG moves often, and HUD has been slow. So to get them to approve some of those options is going to take a little bit of time.
But it is something you're exploring?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's great to hear. Thank you. Yeah, Ms. Russell.
Okay, thanks, Alexis, and your entire department. I am just so pleased at the progress that I've seen to bring safe and affordable housing to our community. And as Mr. Resnick mentioned, pleased to see that we're making progress on our vacant and abandoned buildings to prevent them from needing demolition. I had a question on, it was number 12 in your budget narrative. It was regarding the vouchers. Can you kind of remind me the difference between we're authorized for a certain level of vouchers, but we only budget for a much smaller level? What determines that difference?
HUD's calculation of how much they're going to provide for a budget are, it's a calculation you can't change, and it's almost impossible to increase because you can't spend more than you were already given. And the calculation for next year's is built off this year's. So you can't continue to grow your amount of vouchers without doing something different. We did, which was apply for vouchers like VASH vouchers, the Veterans Assistance or Support. We did the the Family Unification Program, the FUP program. So we can increase the vouchers that way because those then become housing choice vouchers when you drop those programs. So you really have to work within the budget they give you, even though they say you can have 1,079, or we're actually up over 1,100 now. They're going to give you a budget for what you were able to spend last year, and that's what you're stuck with. We're not making inroads on that very quickly, and it just won't happen quickly.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, there are no other discussion or questions here, then I will just throw in a couple things. First of all, I know you were kind of joking. We do a lot of things at the Housing and Community Development. I mean, when I opened this up to read through the report that you give to us, I just felt like I had to keep on scrolling because there's just so much that goes on in housing and community development. But what I'm really excited to see this year is progress on some of these things that you've been really pushing for the last few years. Inspections was a great example. The fact that we're finally able to add that next inspector, and you now are seeing, I mean, the numbers are through the roof compared to where they were. So it's really great to see that, along with repairs completed, and it gives you, I think it should give the whole community some good evidence to say that we're going to see progress on some of these other things too. We're talking about historic properties and our ability to save those, and obviously that's important to us here. So also would love to see more progress on getting landlords with the Housing Choice Voucher Program. So I'm looking forward to the video. I know you've been working hard on those things for the past year, and that discussion has been ongoing for years, really, but it will be good to see that. I do want to point out, this isn't about you and your department so much, but I think it's going to affect you. I'm very concerned about the historic tax credits in the state of Iowa and the situation that just changed with the new tax law. This is it should be really concerning to all of us because of how many historic properties we have in Dubuque. And I think it was a huge miss on the legislature's part. And it's something that we need to help them correct. And I know that, along with Terry Goodman, all of us are working on this, but it's something that I think we can gain some understanding with especially our local legislators, but to make sure that we have a situation where when you go and you try to save a historic property with the work that you're doing, we have people who are able to afford to fix it and go forward as a contractor. And that's the problem that we're facing. I mean, so many of these places are just so difficult to work with. So, barring any other questions or discussion, I think that's it. So thank you very much for the presentation. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay. So next up will be our Purchase of Services grants, our Purchase of Services program. So we'll take a second here and do a switch over. Okay, so next up we have the Purchase of Services program, and we have no improvement packages requested for this year, but I will turn it over to you, Corey.
All right, very good. Thank you. Corey Burbach, Assistant City Manager, and I'm really going to present this portion of the evening on behalf of a team, and I'll talk about that team a little bit, but I'll just mention at the beginning that our Purchase of Services funds live in the Housing and Community Development Department, partially because they used to be CDBG funded, but they touch a lot of service areas, and so there's several folks that are behind the presentation I'm going to share this evening. All right, so the mission statement for the Purchase of Services program is that Purchase of Services are one of 3 different types of funding that you all make through your budget process, designed to invest in community partners who are contributing towards the City Council's goals. So this is just kind of a summary slide. You've heard about the other types of funding that we include in our budget on other budget evenings, but I wanted to include them as a summary because it really shows a complete picture of how you all are choosing to invest in that goal of partnerships for a better Dubuque. So in addition to the Purchase of Service grants, which total $100,000 in the budget, we have about $2.8 million in contracted services, and I'm going to talk about the difference between those 2 programs in just a minute. And then we also have our Arts and Culture, Sustainable Dubuque, and Neighborhood grants that are typically smaller grants, but you've heard about those, or you will hear about those, in the departments that those grants live in. So the Purchase of Services grant funds exist to fund activities that the city is not required to provide, but are part of the City Council's goals and priorities in some way. So the funding process that happens is what you'll approve through this budget process is the total amount. You won't approve the individual organizations that will be getting the funds in FY 2023. That happens through a competitive grant process that happens in the late fall. And those are recommended by the Community Development Advisory Commission and brought to you. So you will see the specific agencies that are recommended for funding after your budget is adopted. So a little bit about the who, the what, and the how this program functions. So nonprofit organizations that provide year-round human resource programs are eligible to apply for these funds. They're organizations that's mission is consistent with your goals and priorities. They can be faith organizations. Services must be delivered within the city of Dubuque, and they must benefit low and moderate income populations. And in recent years, we have been making more and more of an effort to make sure that The outcomes that we measure in terms of program performance are really in line with council's equity and your equitable service delivery goals as well. And then you can see just a little bit of detail there about what are ineligible costs, as well as the purpose statement, which I described earlier. So to share a little bit about what we were able to achieve in the past year, we have a team that started meeting just a little over a year ago and really formalized their work this year, and we call them the Grants and Contracts team. So that team is made up of Jenny Larson. It is chaired by our Equity and Human Rights Director, which is Collins Ebo. It includes all of our departments that have purchase of services funds within them, and then also the directors for the arts, sustainability, and neighborhood grants. And that group really started meeting, so to give you a little bit of a historical context, earlier in my years with the city, each of these purchase of services, neighborhood grants, contracted services kind of floated off in their own departments. Those nonprofits were absolutely working with their department head liaison, but there wasn't this holistic approach of how can we make the best use of these funds to further council's goals. And so in the past year, this team has created their own team charter and standard operating procedures, and that's really to make sure that things like when you heard Gina Bell's presentation on the first night of budget hearings, and she said, well, if we don't have funds, then we try and get them to a different funding source within the city. There's a lot of that cross-department collaboration happening. And then the other thing that this group has been working on quite a bit in the last year is to make sure that we are using standard contract language, so getting the grants out the door, as well as reporting templates, so that while each agency that we fund does something a little bit different and they're going to report on their programs, we're collecting this data in a way where we can say across all of our funding, here's the impact that we had on the community in the past year. So these are the agencies that were recommended for funding and you approved in the FY 2022 budget year, so the year that we're currently under. And you can see, again, whereas some of the purchase of services program was previously funded with CDBG funding, we've shifted that over in recent years solely to general funding, in part because of the reporting requirements involved with CDBG and the additional barriers that it often creates for organizations that are very small and might not have the staffing capacity to be in compliance with those things. So these are the agencies that have been funded in FY 2022. And as I mentioned, what you'll approve in the FY 2023 budget is the block of funds, so $100,000 in general funds, and then the competition for those funds will happen later this calendar year. So just to complete that picture then, again, you have seen that we have various grant funding sources in the city manager's office, Office of Shared Prosperity, and Economic Development departments. And again, we work to try and make sure that we find a good fit when nonprofits come to the city, and we know that they're doing good work in line with your goals. And then the last thing that I want to share with you to complete that picture is the recommendations for FY 2023 contracted services. So these are a little bit different. These are services that the city would have provided potentially within its own organization, but chooses to contract out for a variety of reasons, which could include being able to provide it at a better cost efficiency. So you can see on this screen the nonprofit organizations that are recommended through department budgets. So you will see these funds show up in each of the departments that are in that middle column. And this is the remainder of the nonprofits. Again, these are the recommended contracted services. And the total FY 2023 contracted service investment in the community is just over $2.8 million. And so with that, I would be happy to answer any questions that I can.
All right, thank you, Corey. We'll open for public comment. First, please, Adrian.
At this time, anyone participating in the meeting in person who would like to discuss this public hearing may approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any in-person input for this public hearing. For all remote attendees, please enter your name and address in the chat function and state your question, or state your name and address over the phone when the mayor asks if there is any virtual input for this public hearing. Please begin your input by stating your name and address.
All right, do we have any public input for the purchase of services presentation? Any virtual?
There is none.
You'd say- You looked from over there, yeah, perfect.
And no emails received.
Okay, all right. Then we'll bring it back to the table for discussion, please. Yes, Ms. Russell?
Corey, thanks for that information. It sounds to me like the contracted services are kind of a win-win, where the city wins because we are providing the services that our residents need, but the nonprofit wins because they are getting funds to do what they do best.
I would agree with that. Yes, yes.
All right, thank you, Ms. Rousseau. Any others? Okay. Well, every year, it's always good to see that we have a mechanism for doing this very thing. You know, there's only so much that a city government is able to do, and the fact that we are able to use a program like this to have both contracted services and other funded services is something that is just, in a city like Dubuque where we have so many people doing so many great things, it's great that we're able to offer this. So thank you so much, Corey, for the presentation. All right, we'll move on next to our Planning Services Department. So I'll let that get set up here, and then we'll move along.
It's probably not far enough yet.
That's why it moves, right?
That's right, just for me, right?
All right. So while we let Wally get set up here, we have 7 improvement packages requested for the Planning Services Department, and 6 of them are recommended this year. So Wally, when you're ready, you can take it away.
Yes, good evening, everyone. It's great to see you. You know, you hear the voice over the intercom when I'm doing, other city council meetings, but it's great to meet in person, and I'm not wearing a mask, so you can see the face, right? So I want to start off with our budget here. So our mission statement is, the mission of the Planning Services Department is to provide friendly, knowledgeable, and professional city planning, historic preservation, and development services to not only our city residents, but the community as a whole to ensure a viable, livable, and equitable Dubuque. Retirements, Guy Hemingway. I cannot say enough about Guy. 32 years working for the city. Started out as a planning intern in our office, bounced around to the housing department, came and finished off as an assistant planner. So he's been a great guy and helped out our office, and miss the guy. But let's get involved with our existing crew. So the Planning Services Department is made up of 8.83 full-time equivalents. That's kind of our organizational chart there, and I'm going to kind of go through some of the staff members that we have associated with each individual. So let's see here. So here's a story of a city planner, Wally Wernemont. So I've been working for the city for about 21 years. Started as an assistant planner and was able to work my way up and get promoted to this position. And I've had opportunities to leave the city. I love it so much, I cannot do it. I'm very fortunate to be in the position that I am. So we have Charlie Miller, zoning enforcement officer. A lot of people don't like seeing Charlie because he is the zoning enforcement officer. He's worked 8 years for the city, but he does a great job. He has a very difficult job, and he has the ability to talk to individuals, inform them about the rules and regulations, and come to a compromise without having to actually find people, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. Chris Happ-Olson, she is an assistant planner. She handles our historic preservation and city planning activities, and she's been working for our office for about 3 years, 3.5 years actually. Travis Schrovelgen has been working in our office for 5 years. He actually started out as a planning intern. Just by chance, he needed an internship, and we were able to hire him. Was able to be hired as our planning technician and was promoted to assistant planner in our office. Travis handles a lot of our development services side of things, staffed to our zoning board of adjustment and zoning advisory commission. Jane Glennon, she's worked for almost 20 years for the city. She started out in finance, went to the housing, utility billing, finance, and then she's wound up in our office at the end. So she has helped out immensely, having especially a lot of the financial background to help assist our department with things like the budget here. So Jason Duba, he's worked for the city for about 3.5 years. He started out in transportation, was over in housing, helping out Alexis with the lead-based paint program. His background is actually in planning, transportation planning to be exact. So he helps assist our development services side, gets involved with some of the DMATs, which you just talked about the contract for services. ECIA helps assist us with some of that funding. He gets involved with sign permits, also staff to various boards and commissions. Sheena Moon, she's actually one of our newbies. She's here 9 months. She worked in Arizona, and then she actually worked for the city of Beverly Hills for 7 years. She was a native Wisconsin, so she wanted to get back home, so we were able to steal her. And she's been great. She's our associate planner. She actually helps facilitate our development services activity. So she kind of helps lead those zoning board of adjustment, zoning advisory commission meetings, and handles a lot of the site plan reviews in our office. And then a new guy, he's in black and white because he is fairly new. I had to steal this image off the internet and inform him about that. But, Ryan's been with us for a whole 3 weeks. So he is a recent graduate of Iowa State University. He is our planning technician. That position helps with a lot of our boards and commissions preparing some of the documentation. It's kind of an entry-level position that we help prep individuals. And you've seen, like, for instance, Guy Hemingway, Travis Schroebelgen, Jason Duba is a planning tech. It helps prepare them for those next steps up. So, what are we? We're the planning bunch, right? So we also have an intern from Loras College that just started about a week and a half ago. Her name's Unisha Tapalia, and she's been great. She's going to be helping us with the Black Heritage Survey that we'll talk about in a little bit. And then also just a lot of routine things around our office. So a lot of our activities get involved with boards and commissions. We have 28 appointed volunteers, and there's no way we would be able to do what we do in our office without these volunteers. We list the leadership, the chair people and chairpersons for these individual boards and commissions, but there's a lot of more individuals that are associated with them. A lot of things are regulated by state code. We can't even approve a rezoning or a zoning board of adjustment case or long-range planning for the comprehensive plan without individuals like this that volunteer their time. So we're greatly appreciated of them, and then great to see some former commission members on the city council. So one thing that you may not be aware of that we get involved with, we actually have 2 design review committees that we're in charge of in special development areas in our city. We have our Porter Dubuque Design Review Committee, and we have our Chaplain Schmidt Island Design Review Committee. So we have an ordinance that regulates the land use, what can be constructed on that site, but then there's design guidelines. There's a design review committee that actually sits down and review those designs. We make recommendations to the city manager through a process, and that's actually handled at both of those locations. We're going to talk about creating an equitable community of choice. Our department actually has an equity plan that we follow. It outlines several different topics and everything from marketing for hiring practices to equitable fees and fines to, there's a whole litany of information there. But I wanted to pull out a couple things along the equitable fees and fines. When we get involved with the zoning enforcement, a lot of times we'll get a call, we're reactive, we'll receive a complaint, we'll go out and investigate the site. We'll identify if there's a violation, and then our first step is to educate. So we send a letter, we inform residents, they may not be aware that they're actually violating a zoning ordinance code requirement. So we make an opportunity to explain to them, figure out how we can remedy the situation, and then we give them a certain period of time to work to correct the violation. If we were to go right to a fine, sometimes that fine could be a considerable amount of money for some individuals, and that money could be actually used to help correct the violation. Now, saying that, like I said, we're a complaint basis, so we receive a complaint from a concerned party. We inform that individual or that party throughout the whole process to make sure that we're not just ignoring the thing. What we're trying to do is seek compliance. It doesn't do any good to fine them, and then it just sits there. Let's get it taken care of if we can. However, we do have to sometimes get to that level where we have to fine and we have to go through the court process. So. Text amendments, we listen to our community as we talk about the Equitable Poverty Reduction and Prevention Plan and the Imagine Dubuque Plan. We have done some text amendments concerns with child care and then community gardens and greenhouses to help create a little bit more for access to food. Fiscal year 2022 highlights. We have our Imagine Dubuque Comprehensive Plan tracking website that was launched. We completely updated the flood hazard overlay district regulations to keep us in compliance for the National Flood Insurance Program. That was a requirement of the DNR. They did that statewide. And then we received a historic resource development grant to conduct a Black Heritage Survey, which we're really super excited about. This is an opportunity for us to kind of do a reverse survey where normally we choose a geographic area because of the housing stock. Well, we're actually researching our history in relation to our Black heritage and trying to find those locations, but we're researching genealogy, who lived here, what did they do, and if they left or if they're still here. There's other information that we're finding that we're pulling out, and this is a partnership where we're actually working with Loras College and with University of Dubuque, and they actually have 2 classes that are helping assist us with some of the background research and investigation. And then also we worked with the Multifamily Cultural Center to help us, educate about how we go about researching historic properties. But there's going to be a lot of names that people are not familiar with that have been made significant contributions to the city, and we're pretty excited about that. And some areas that will probably be identified for National Register eligible listed districts. And then, of course, I'm very happy because my department's fully staffed, as you can see, as of 3 weeks ago. So, future initiatives, Unified Development Code update. That's part of one of our improvement package requests. I talked about that Black Heritage Survey here. Updating our existing and future land use map with the Southwest Arterial opening and that area that's located in expansion. We talk about Dubuque Industrial Crossroads and kind of the growth of the city. We need to sit back and kind of reanalyze, what's the existing, what's the future land use, what are our needs in our community. A lot of that will help get some information as we move forward with some of our housing research and then our Unified Development Code research. State Historic Preservation Office programmatic agreement. This is an agreement that allows us as the city to conduct what they call Section 106 reviews or historical review of properties when they're involved with federal funding internally. What that does, it helps cut down on some of the staff workload at the State Historic Preservation Office. It also allows us to review them faster. When we submit stuff to the State Historic Preservation Office, they have a 30-day review period where they may review it. On day 29, they may contact us and say we need more information, and then a whole another 30 days goes on. And if you just imagine with all the potential funding that will be flowing in to the cities and the state with infrastructure funds and everything that's coming through the federal government, any way we can get this approved and through would help us. We're very happy in the fact that the state has been coming to us, and not every community will have the opportunity to take advantage of this. But because of the way our relationship and how we've conducted Section 106 reviews and the documentation that we provide, they're definitely most welcomely to help us to take advantage of that. So we're actually kind of creating the kind of that first program to help them move throughout the state. So, and then obviously continue to implement the Dubuque Comprehensive Plan. This is our property tax support. Just give you some numbers, some breakdown there. $8.82 for the average homeowner for the Planning Services Department. To get in some of those activities I was mentioned, city planning, we provide staff support to the Long Range Planning Advisory Commission. We engage the community development partnerships, implement that Imagine Dubuque plan. And then we have an annexation study that I talked about with that future land use and existing land use maps. Two pictures here you're kind of familiar with because I just heard you talk about them a little bit, and I kind of came in. I don't know if Alexis popped one in her video or in her presentation or not. But, the Long Range Planning Advisory Commission, in order for these 2 affordable housing projects to happen, I have to establish urban revitalization districts for that to happen. So we have Roosevelt West, that senior housing facility, and then the Gardens of Dubuque apartments. Our office works with the developers that come in and they try to locate sites that are eligible for IFA funding for the low housing income tax credits. So we help assist them as like this is an area that might score well, provide numbers. We help them assist them with the rezoning of the property and then take them through the Long Range Planning Advisory Commission to make that recommendation for those urban renewal plans or urban revi plans depending on the funding sources that they're using. And also, they undertake special projects. I mean, we're looking at updating existing and future land use maps. But one thing we're also been working on is vacant and developable land inventory. How much land do we have in our corporate limits that is vacant and developable? So we're trying to pull out that information just so, it may be a marketing opportunity. So when developers are coming in or anyone that may be available might realize, oh, I didn't realize that land could be developed. Now, it's just going to identify the opportunities. It'll be up to the individual who may want to approach the property owner and say, hey, are you willing to, develop the land? But, when we look at our corporate limits and the land that's available, it is kind of very sporadic in certain areas, and we're starting to see areas develop that haven't been developed in the past because they may have some developmental issues, rock, access, and some other things. So we really need to look at how can we get more available land or more vacant land available for future development in our community. Imagine Dubuque implementation, city council priority, something that our office definitely is involved with. We're the backbone organization for the implementation of that plan. We work with our city department managers as connectors. All those coordinators are helping assist us throughout the community. And then all those champions that we're trying to help push forward with all those different goals. As you've seen this many times, the 7 plan categories, all the subcategories, and those 110 plan recommendations, which we'll talk about how we track that when we get to our performance measures. Development services side, we get involved with coordinating the development and review team, and that's a team made up of the Planning Services Department, Engineering, Water, Fire, and Building Services, which is Constructions and Inspections Division, which I have to get used to calling it that way. But in addition to those 5 departments, we do reach out to other departments that get included. If it's a restaurant, the health department usually touches in. Sometimes we get the public works department, economic development department steps in with all these development review processes that we go through. The development review team in fiscal year 2021, you can see we've had some increases there, 544,000 square feet of approved non-residential development. I did put the 5-year average line on there. I'm not sure if that shows up very well on your screen, but that is about 2,272 or 272,000 is kind of on the average of the previous years. So, like I said, we kind of track a lot of our information. Our Zoning Advisory Commission, we track all of our cases. We help identify if they're located in a community development block grant area or a targeted neighborhood. We track those the past 5 years, and then we provide the pie chart that gives you kind of the breakdown of those. Almost all ZAC cases come before you, with the exception of site plan reviews, or site plan waivers, excuse me, and some of the site plan reviews are just done at the commission level. Zoning Board of Adjustment, we've had 55 total cases in fiscal year 2021. A lot of those are special exceptions. Special exception is a residential variance. It allows property owners to build closer to property lines, bigger garages, setbacks. But what's great about that is it allows a property owner to maybe want to build a larger garage on their property that may or may not be allowed, and allows them to stay where they're at and make investments and improvements to their property. Zoning enforcement cases, Charlie's done 350 of those for fiscal year 2021, and I just want to point to that map. You can see a high concentration of where those calls for service are and inspection, and those are in our targeted neighborhoods where, once again, like I'm talking about equitable fees and fines and the approach that we go with that to educate and try to get the compliance without fining helps out those individuals. Historic preservation activity, and we support the Historic Preservation Commission, our staff does, and we conduct a lot of surveys, evaluations, and then we facilitate that Section 106 process that we talked about with the state of Iowa for all those housing projects that Alexis just went over. So every one of those you see, if there's a federal fund involved with that, there's a review that has to come through our office. And we get involved with those evaluation and protection of our historic resources. We're constantly doing surveys. We have over 6,000 historic properties that have been surveyed. When we say protecting over 2,000, those are just properties that have been identified to be located in our city designated historic districts and our conservation districts. Actually being listed on the National Register does not protect your property unless you fall within some of those existing districts. And then we track how much money is being spent in our historic and downtown neighborhoods. In fiscal year 21, that was $3.5 million. Here's a map of our caseload. We had 90 historic preservation cases back in FY 21. Most of those are those Section 106 reviews, but we do break them down in what we call a certificate of appropriateness, which is the design review. And with our architectural guidelines, we actually have the ability to review a lot of cases and sign off at the staff level administratively. What's great about that is they don't have to pay a fee for that, and the cases that now pretty much go to the commission has to do with if it's an inappropriate material or a large addition that is a little bit more to be involved for review at the staff level, or unfortunately demolition. So we do track how happy are our customers. So we send out surveys of everyone that we work with at our board and commission level. When we get involved with site plan reviews, we take all that information annually and we compile that. And this is a summary of basically that breakdown of our customers. So it looks like they're pretty happy, which makes us happy. So, and what I always say, and I think I've mentioned this a lot to when we have our orientation, not only are we outward facing to the community, we get our fingers in everyone's business in the city. So this is some of our connections that we work with many of the other departments that you may or may not see going on at that level. Those recommended improvement requests, like you mentioned, we have 6 of them. First one, just to go over, that's just basically we're taking over the website, Teska Associates. We don't have a contract with it anymore. This is just to help pay for us to manage that website. We're requesting $20,000 for Imagine Dubuque Comprehensive Plan activation. That's funding that we can help with additional marketing, and then also maybe to help individuals get together and kind of push them to maybe move forward a recommendation that's sitting there. Update to Unified Development Code, $100,000. That's a big dollar amount, right? You see that? I mean, our budget's $1 million, and a tenth of it is that. When we look at our Unified Development Code, there's been a lot of things that have happened since it was adopted. For instance, we have 4 plans. We have the Imagine Dubuque Plan, we have the Equitable Poverty Reduction Plan, we have the Arts and Culture Plan, and we have, what am I missing? One more. The Climate Action Plan. So a lot of times those are plans, but how can we implement or have some teeth to push forward some of those recommendations? By updating that Unified Development Code, it is an ordinance that helps provide some of that. So we'll be working with a consultant to go through those plans, evaluate, have outside eyes look on our Unified Development Code. Is there certain things that we're missing? Is there opportunities where we can be a little bit more flexible, remove some barriers that we may not see? For instance, housing lot sizes, or is there some ways that we can encourage some changes to our child care to encourage that, or more housing or development in our community? And then one other one is an opportunity for not only the staff to our Zoning Advisory Commission, Zoning Board of Adjustment, but to you as officials. Iowa State University does hold a workshop. It's a 3-hour workshop, and it goes over everything from zoning, understanding land use, and what's a variance, what's a special exception, how do you get out with takings, spot zoning, just a lot of great base information that's pretty helpful that we've attended in the past. We have 2 planners. We're requesting to get some Dale Carnegie training. Our other 2 planners, assistant planners, have gone through that process. I've gone through that process. I think it's very rewarding, and as we have new staff, we'd like to provide that opportunity for them to take advantage of that, especially when they get involved with networking, but then also some of the public speaking and communication that they have to go through. And then this creating a virtual planning conference room. I'm not a person that likes to be in walls. So we have a walled office, and what I've seen, the ability is to convert that space into our own conference room. We do have a lot of individuals that show up to our office, and instead of inviting them into a cubicle, which we may not have a lot of space, we'll have our own space to be able to go to. It's also an opportunity where if Charlie's working with an individual, he can pull them out and put them in the conference room. We can have a conversation. but then also just some flex space that's available to us. But it allows us to sit and have virtual meetings together and just have that nice flexible space that we have in our office. Capital improvement project, $15,000. That's our seed money to help apply for all the federal grants that we apply for, especially with the architectural and historic surveys, that Black Heritage Survey, and ongoing items that are associated with that. Performance measures, as we go through different activities here, development services, we have our average day reviews for some of the boards and commissions. But that 55-day average for the Zoning Advisory Commission for a rezoning, most communities, if you would work with them throughout the state, that may be 6 months. And we're turning them around in about 55 days. So, and we're actually having that opportunity for the public input that's associated with that. So trying to be a little bit more development friendly and get projects through the process and underway. And then, when we talk about city planning, we talk about the Imagine Dubuque plan, and we have that progress tracking website. So if you ever have an opportunity to go through to see how recommendations are going on, this is a tracker that we get through. And annually in August, we'll give an update to you, and that tells us how we're progressing as we move through with the implementation of that plan. And then the last one is historic preservation. Like I mentioned before, just the average time we take to review application, and then also that investment in our historic districts. That's all I have. You guys have any questions for me?
All right, thank you, Wally. We'll open for public comment first, so go ahead, Adrian.
At this time, anyone participating in the meeting in person who would like to discuss this public hearing may approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any in-person input for this public hearing. For all remote attendees, please enter your name and address in the chat function and state your question, or state your name and address over the phone when the mayor asks if there is any virtual input for this public hearing. Please begin your input by stating your name and address.
Thank you, Adrian. Do we have any public input? And virtually?
No emails received.
Okay, so hearing no public input, bring it back to the table. Ms. Rousseau.
Well, thanks, Wally. As you know, planning services always has a special place in my heart because my first step into city government was the Zoning Advisory Commission. So what I'd like to do is just say thank you to you and your group for the thorough and complete preparation that you give, not only to the commission, but to us, when we have to discuss those zoning changes that can be very complicated. Somehow you seem to be able to present it in a way that we can all understand and yet be thorough and accurate. So just want to say thanks to your group.
Thank you.
The planning bunch. Yeah,
Yes, the planning bunch.
yeah. Mr. Sprank.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Wally, echoing a lot of that, kudos, thank you. As a contractor, I've had to work with Chris Olson a few times just to help me out on some historic projects that we were doing on, so it was seamless. I had no problems. I knew that there was a process. The process was all clearly laid out, so the expectations were there. So it just made things go a lot easier for somebody who'd never had to, I'd never had to deal with it until I was doing some projects in the historic neighborhoods. I also really like the new maps that you guys have created on your website, so you can actually just look up a property and be like, oh, it's in either a conservation district or a historic district. And sometimes some of the properties are right on the line, but it's always helpful, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Resnick.
Thank you. So my question is for either Mr. Werdemont or Ms. Larson, because on your department summary, you have a figure of $249,835 for supplies and services, which is up over 123%. So I was looking through I was looking through here for a long time, and I never found it. Is that number disaggregated somewhere in there?
Yeah, I was going to say, so it's part of those improvement packages. So the services side of thing is kind of the larger one. So you think $100,000 for a consultant to update the Unified Development Code, and then we have the $20,000 for the Imagine Dubuque plan. So, and then on our, so as we add all those improvement package levels together, that's kind of getting that figure up. And, it is quite a jump when you look at the size of our budget for that, but it's mainly in those consultant fees that we're looking at for that.
Right, and that's a one-time thing.
Right.
Right, okay. So I was looking down, and I should have been looking up on the other side. Okay, and the improvement packages. Thank you very much.
Yep, you bet.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Wally, thank you, first of all. Great presentation. I always appreciate hearing, especially, I kind of want to echo what Ms. Roussel said. The detail that comes to us here on city council and thus the public, that gets to be public facing is just, it's so well put together in a way that it does make it understandable for everybody to be able to move through this process and understand what's going on. It's always clear to me how much work you're doing in your department, and especially with all the boards and commissions that you work with. I do want to stick with, the big ticket item that you're talking about here, because I want to stick with it just because it sticks out. And I think, I know I was asking myself some questions about what exactly would go into updating a unified development code that would cost so much money. But you've mentioned a couple of things, and I wanted to give you a chance to elaborate even further if you want. But you mentioned the fact that you looked around to see, what the cost of this is in other places that have done this. And you've also said that, I know I saw some information somewhere, I think it was an email you sent to us today that said the last time you did this, it actually cost $150,000.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So is this kind of just, it's mainly consulting fees, correct?
It is consultant fees. There are some other things that get associated with it. So
Yep.
when we get involved with updating certain things, so like the Unified Development Code in 2009, it was $150,000. We actually took 3 different codes and combined it to create Unified Development Code. Some of the fees that associated with this involves meeting room fees, connection fees, but then also, believe it or not, we have to publish that Unified Development Code in the Telegraph Herald newspaper, and that is could be a high ticket item, anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000. Sometimes that is required by law, but then just other things that we get involved with that update of that code. We've had several meetings, and when we have those meetings, we have multiple technical committees. So what I love about this process is we bring everyone to the table. Think about signs. We get a lot of calls about signs. So when we do a sign, we'll have a sign technical committee like we did last time. We bring people to the table that love signs, and we bring people to the table that absolutely hate signs. So we have to facilitate that discussion, bring those individuals together, and bring that consultant in. So it's a little bit different because when we look at the virtual platform now, the ability to communicate virtually, whoever we decide to hire with a consultant. But sometimes some of those conversations work a little bit better in person than trying to talk over a phone or over a video. So there's certain costs that come associated with that. So
So what I'm hearing you say is this is basically the cost of doing business when you do something like this.
It
You're
is,
going to
it
update this code. This is what it's going to cost.
Right. And this code it's a regulatory code, so it controls all development in the city. So it's kind of that ordinance or that code that has the teeth. So when we have, for instance, the Port of Dubuque, we have a Port of Dubuque master plan, and we have design guidelines. But what makes you have to do the design guidelines, and what makes you have to follow the plan? Well, the ordinance does, the teeth of the ordinance. So this helps lay out the guidelines and those regulations. So as we move forward and talk about housing in the future here, when we get involved with site plan review, development, I know, Laura, we talk a lot about trees, right? How we can encourage more tree development in our community, how we encourage more childcare. But the other things is, are there things in our ordinance that we can remove that have barriers that, internally we may not be aware of, but if we hire a consultant from the outside that works on a lot of these, may come to that conclusion. But yeah, I did a lot of research, to be honest with you, because it is sometimes hard to kind of come up with a number for a certain, when you create plans, kind of checked on and evaluated that. So I just hope I'm asking for enough.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Well, I really appreciate that explanation. I think that really does help to explain exactly what's going on with that particular package. So, all right. Well, I think that's everything we have for you, Wally. So thank you very much for
right.
the presentation and for all the work that your team does.
Right, thank you.
All right. We'll move on to our very last presentation of the evening, the Economic Development Program. So we'll let that get set up. Last but not least, of course. We have the Economic Development Department. We have 13 improvement packages requested, and 10 of them are recommended. So I'll let you take it away.
Thank you. Jill Connors, Economic Development Director here at the city. We are here tonight. Jenny Peterson Brandt is here as well, the Arts and Cultural Affairs Coordinator, and she'll speak to some of her particular efforts. We are here tonight to tell you what we do, who we are, how we do it, and why we do it. The Economic Development Department delivers programming that ensures the economic and social health of our community, and we do that with our partners of nonprofit and private organizations. Our current programming focuses on equitable job opportunities, cultivation of a lively arts and culture scene, creation of housing options to attract and retain residents, and the expansion of the tax base by leveraging private investment. Our small but mighty team, 5 people, 3.75 full-time equivalents. Myself, Ian Hatch, who's our Assistant Director, Jenny Peterson Brandt, who's the Arts and Cultural Affairs Coordinator, Cindy Kramer, who's our Confidential Account Clerk, and Michael Williams, the newest addition to our team as an intern. When I reviewed this with Mike, he thought this was so beautiful that we could just stop here and everybody be happy, but I assured him the last slide would be even better. So hang on, we'll keep going. At a 10,000-foot view, here's the work that we do: business attraction and expansion, workforce development, housing creation, a connected community, and quality of life through arts and culture. Part of the funding that supports our work comes from property taxes. Just over $1.3 million this year for our operating expenses, which comes about to $20 per average household for a year's worth of work for our team. So I think that's a good deal. But we also use tax increment financing, not just your property taxes. We strategize to use funding from improvements that happen to pay, to incentivize the projects themselves and to create better outcomes at the end. One thing that we do with tax increment financing is we address slum and blight. And that's your downtown redevelopment, and it leverages private investment. So if you look here, you got slum and blight, your property values are going down. Oh, we're gonna have a project. So we set the base value, that's that yellow part. All of the taxing bodies continue to split that base, the city, the county, the school district. When the property goes up in value, then that green portion is that increase. That's the amount that by Urban Renewal Authority, the city can capture that, provide that to the developer or the company as the incentive for doing their work to kind of offset, let them get on their feet before they're paying their full taxes at the end of the agreement. Typically then we would get to that blue section at year 10. At that point, the developer gets no more incentives, and now all the taxing bodies are splitting that blue part. So it's a good deal. Nobody's given anything up in that yellow section there. They're all still splitting what they already had, but you can see you went from going down in property values to back up significantly. Besides slum and blight, we also do economic development projects such as job creation, housing development, downtown rehab, public improvements, and again, this program leverages private investment, which is key. Again, we start not with a declining property value, but with a steady but low, maybe baseline value for the entirety of an agreement with a company. The taxing buddies all continue to split what's the baseline value there on the bottom. The orange section is what the city can capture and use as an incentive. And when we get to the end of the agreement, we have that yellow section that all the taxing bodies now get to split. Here's what we've done with it. Urban Renewal Authority has existed for quite some time, since the 60s, I believe, but the city of Dubuque hasn't really used it in earnest until the mid-90s. Since that time, we've done 89 projects, put in about $100 million of public investment, but that has leveraged $738 million in private investment. created 10,000 jobs, and every dollar that we stick in has leveraged over $7. And if you look at just the past 10 years, it leverages closer to $10. It's a 10 to 1. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I'm going to go back. Our intern, Michael Williams, he also is an entrepreneur, has a company, he does photos and drone footage, and some of the images we're using here tonight are his photos. He's allowed us to use them in our presentation. So thanks, Michael, for that. In 2020, we thought we would see a slowdown of development. We did not. I was pleasantly surprised at the volume of work that was happening in the community. It did slow down in 2021. I think it caught up with us, the supply chain, the cost of materials, et cetera. But this past year, we did have 2 large development agreements and then 5 grant agreements. We still incentivized nearly $21 million in private investment, created 226 jobs, and 11 new apartments. You've heard from all the departments about equity, and I'll repeat for you and for the public, it's important that we create a community of choice. Where do people want to live? And my job is to make sure they want to live here so they can work, add to the quality of life in the tax base, and we do that through our partnerships based on these 4 pillars. Here's why it's important. Just a few reasons why it's important. You can see here just the comparison between our white residents and black residents. Now, this doesn't look at all the different combinations of other minority populations, but I just wanted to make a point here. White residents have much higher household income, around $56,000 as opposed to $12,000. The home ownership rate is around 67% as opposed to 11%. The unemployment rate is 4% compared to 16%. That's not okay. And what we do is we're trying to do something about it. So I mentioned our 10,000-foot view of the work that we do. Now we're going to talk about some of the equity-focused work that we do. We work toward having affordable housing in town, childcare access. That takes up a lot of my time. You could have never told me that would be the case as an economic development director. We have an Opportunity Dubuque program, which is upskilling through NICC to get people into better jobs than what they currently have. We're studying transportation to get folks to training into jobs, making sure that there's fiber to homes and businesses, putting together resources and support for targeted small businesses, which is defined as minority-owned, women-owned, veteran-owned, and low-income-owned small businesses. Making sure that there's equitable access to arts and cultural experiences. And Jenny has just done an amazing job. She continues to really focus on how do we get arts and culture to more of our residents, opportunities to them, and inspiring entrepreneurship. We know that small businesses are a huge part of the American economy. We want to make sure that we're tapping into that here in Dubuque. This is a photo of Erica Brewer. She owns a boutique on Central Avenue. She has done a great job with her business. She's a great woman, and I feel like she just exemplifies everything that we're trying to accomplish. Not that I helped her personally do all of those things. She's making her own success, but what we're trying to accomplish through our work is making sure there are opportunities for other people to have the same sort of success that Erica is having. She was just named the Iowa Woman Entrepreneur of the Year by the Small Business Development Center. So she can be very proud of that, and we're proud she's from Dubuque. The geographical areas where we focus most of our work are downtown, including Central Avenue and the Millwork District, Chaplain Schmidt Island, Kerper Boulevard, the Industrial Center on the West End, and then the Tech Park. The Dubuque Main Street program started here in 1985, and they have been tracking the investment and improvements in our downtown ever since. Almost $1 billion of improvements in our downtown and over 4,000 net new jobs. That's net new jobs. That's just not moving from somewhere else in town. And the vast majority of that has been just in the past 20 years. High-speed internet is important to our work. It's another utility. People can't go to school, go to work, do their jobs without it. And so some of the goals that we have around broadband here in the community are to increase the investment in competition. You may recall a number of years ago, there was one game in town, now there's 10. To have increased speed, services, redundancy, and to prepare the right-of-way for future safety and economic uses. The strategy around this obviously is public-private partnerships. That's the secret sauce that everybody in Dubuque uses. That's how we get our work done. One example of the work that's being done from an equity lens is there's subsidies for low-income households to get internet, $30 off every month. We've got 341 households taking advantage of that program already. To date, fiber access has been provided to all of the commercial and industrial areas, so that's progress. Now we're working on the homes, getting all of those connected as well with broadband. Greater Dubuque Development, including Dave Lyons in particular, has been a great partner, working alongside Comelec Internet, Maquoketa Valley Electric, and Imon Communications. Imon Communications has already provided a universal build-out plan to the city, and we believe Comelec and Maquoketa Valley are not far behind, so we're excited about that. We have, related to small business, again, thinking about equity here, we started a business creation and business assistance grant using CDBG funds in the past year, and we were able to assist 10 different businesses to get up and running or to improve their operations and stay open during the pandemic. Here you can see a photo of a number of our grant recipients. Starting on the left, we have Lindsay Ryder, Lou Gerdeman, Tanisha Frazier, Dale Campbell, Erica Brewer again, Renee Dunn, Alonda Gregory, and Michael Williams. They were able to take advantage of some relatively small grant funds to keep their doors open, and they've said they speak very highly of the program, and you'll see in our capital improvement area that that program is planned to continue with some additional CDBG funding. We've acted as a conduit to multiple resources for our businesses. We're not a direct service provider, but we make sure that small businesses who contact us are aware of what the other resources are. And we've begun attending small business networking events put together by the Collective Small Business Alliance here in Dubuque, and they've been very successful, well attended. What do we see here? We have some information here about the Opportunity Dubuque program. That's the upskilling certificate programs that NICC provides. There have been over 800 graduates to date, and 94% of them have found employment or have continued their education. It's really a phenomenal program. Why is that important? Well, you can see the collision course we're on here between the number of jobs available and the number of people available to do them. We've already seen how that accelerated these past 2 years. It's not getting any easier, so we need to make sure from a systems perspective that we're supporting financially the programs that are working, and Opportunity Dubuque is one of them. Here's a smattering of some of our partners that we work with. Hopefully I didn't forget any key ones. We work with plenty of folks. But I'm going to turn it over now to Jenny Peterson-Brandt, who's going to tell you more about the arts and cultural work that comes out of our office.
Thanks, Jill, and good evening, Mayor, City Council, fellow city staff, the few that are here tonight, and members of the public who are present and online. I'm Jenny Peterson-Brandt, Arts and Cultural Affairs Coordinator with the City of Dubuque. Carried out with the support of our 7-member Arts and Cultural Affairs Advisory Commission. Our primary arts and cultural activities include what you see on the screen, but I'll talk a little bit more about them here, in the sense of that we work to oversee implementation and volunteer coordination related to Dubuque's Arts and Culture Master Plan. We administer competitive grants and distribute funding through the Operating Support and Special Projects Grant Programs. We facilitate the annual Art on the River rotating public art program along the Mississippi Riverwalk. We plan and host events that are aimed at strengthening the resolve and resiliency of a diverse local creative economy. We partner with the Dubuque Museum of Art to produce the annual Winter Art Snow Sculpting Festival and Competition. And I have to say, just a brief, I had the littlest smile on my face when I drove up tonight, and some of the sculptures are still there, just a little bit. So I love that they're still hanging out some. And finally, we seek out additional arts and culture-focused engagement and outreach opportunities that can be supported through external grant funding or in tandem with local and regional partners. So following a year of massive uncertainty and constant pivoting and significant challenges for the arts and culture sector, 2021 felt like, I would say, a little bit of a renaissance, a little bit of a shot in the arm, because it felt like we were able to take some big strides and get some renewed energy back into the work to empower and inspire the community through creative placemaking and culture-bearing work. One of the biggest highlights of 2021 for our office was securing a $500,000 grant from the National Endowment for the Arts to support the recovery of our arts and culture nonprofits and to pilot funding for artist-driven community projects. Dubuque was one of just 66 communities to receive funding from that American Rescue Plan Local Arts Agency sub-granting program. And we were the smallest population-wise to receive the maximum funding award of $500,000. In 2021, thanks to grant funding from the Government Alliance on Race and Equity and in collaboration with the Accessibility, Engagement, and Inclusion Working Group of the Arts and Culture Master Plan, we launched a new series that we're calling Creatives Cafes, which is featured in the image on the right there of our inaugural one that we held in November at the Smokestack. These quarterly networking events are meant to gather creatives of diverse backgrounds through intentional invitation to build relationships and trust in the hopes of inspiring new collaboration, broader representation, and expanded inclusion of diverse voices. Last year, we also were able to secure $25,000 in combined grants from the Iowa Department of Cultural Affairs and Travel Iowa to initiate the development of a communications campaign that will collectively promote Dubuque's arts and culture assets as a unique, multifaceted tourism and community engagement resource. 2021, we were busy, wow. The Arts and Culture Advisory Commission also developed and adopted a 5-year strategic plan to guide their work, and we invested in training offered by Springboard for the Arts to city staff and arts commissioners to learn more about artist-centered community development and planning practices. And then finally, and one of my favorite things about the year is that we continued our virtual check-ins with our funded partners, and we offered 44 hours of professional development, discourse on DEI, and camaraderie and resource sharing that is increasing the collaboration amongst and the impact of our funded partners. These meetings, which some like to refer to as Jenny's weekly calls, we started them in April of 2020 just to offer sector-wide support in navigating the pandemic, but we continue them to this day, and we anticipate continuing them for the foreseeable future because they've just become such a valuable thing for our partners. So in terms of the Economic Development's Arts and Culture Activity Budget, our most significant line item is related to the Operating Support Grant Program. This program offers limited support to established arts and culture organizations that operate within the city. To receive funding, organizations must demonstrate a commitment to serving the community through accessible, public-facing arts education, or cultural heritage programs. Through this support, we expand access to a wide range of diverse arts and culture learning experiences that we hope foster economic activity, promote citizen engagement, and cultivate an equitable community of choice. last year, or actually the year we're still in, FY '22, we distributed $250,000 in operating support grants to 19 nonprofits, with the smallest award being around $800 and the largest being about $30,000 for an average of $13,195 for those awards. And I think it's important to note that for the range of organizations that we fund, the smallest one has an operating budget of about $13,000, and the largest one has an operating budget of about $5.9 million. And collectively, they employ 300 people on a full-time, part-time, or seasonal basis, which equates to $5 million in employee wages and nearly $300,000 paid to independent contractors in the creative sector. So I meant to bring up this slide while I was saying all that. So this is just a look at where that operating support program has come over the years. It was actually launched about 13 years ago, and so this isn't the entire timeline of it, but just showing sort of where, in recent years, where the funding amount that we had was meeting the operating budget requests of those organizations, and then to demonstrate how those organizations have, really the orange line shows the growth in organizations, because that amount of money being requested has gone up over the years. So in addition to the operating support, our other significant arts and culture activity and economic development is our special projects grants. And these are meant to fund projects that seek to cultivate unique, innovative, and relevant creative arts and cultural experiences that prioritize community engagement, activate partnership, and incorporate DEI practices in alignment with city goals and priorities. And the photo featured here, I just want to call out quickly, is from the Sister Cities exhibit that was held in the Millwork District with a partnership between the Sister Cities Committee and Travel Dubuque. So that was exciting to see that. And this next year, we look forward to inspiring and funding even more new arts and cultural programs and projects with that program. So like I mentioned, both of those programs have been around, were launched 13 years ago. And over that time, the city has invested $3.9 million to assist this work to happen. And this slide just represents, I think I got most, but in reviewing this slide with the city manager, I noted that there was a couple that got missed. So this shows most of the folks, most of the nonprofits that we've funded over the years. So finally, I just wanted to give a little overview of that Arts and Culture Master Plan, which is a big piece of my work. With that plan being adopted in 2016, it was intended to really provide goals and direction for both the city and the community to maximize the impact of arts and culture-driven efforts on the community of Dubuque, both from an economic well-being side of things and also when it comes to the social cultural vibrancy of our community. The work is divided into 5 topical threads that you can see on the right-hand side, and each of these are driven by either a dedicated working group or by a subcommittee of the Arts and Cultural Affairs Commission. The plan also serves as an evaluation tool for us when it comes to looking at grant applications and a strategy screen for all the great new creative projects and ideas that percolate up at the city level. So my final slide is just about some of the things that, in addition to our primary activities that I was talking about at the beginning, some of the things that we're going to be working on, and really the budget piece of staff support in the FY23 budget will help a lot of these things to continue, because most of it is either already been, like for instance, the economic prosperity study we've already paid for, we just have to do it now. And a lot of these other things are either grant funded or done in in-kind partnerships with other organizations. So we're going to be continuing our Creatives Cafes for the, to be working towards that Dubuque Renaissance project idea. We'll actually be developing that communications campaign with the grant funding that we received last year. We'll be revisiting the Local Creatives Directory that was developed in partnership with the Dubuque County Fine Arts Society, and it's just something we have to fine-tune, tweak, and expand the engagement on in the coming year. And then we'll be participating in the, like I mentioned, the Arts and Economic Prosperity Study number 6 with Americans for the Arts, and that study will actually be taking place. We'll be gathering data starting in May of this year, all the way through April of next year, and then expecting the results of that study to come out in September or October of 2023. And I'll turn it back to Jill.
That's what we do. Here's how we're going to do it, with a little bit of money. Our contracted service agencies provide a lot of work for us, work that we need done, that we would do in-house if we had more than 3 3/4 people. But we rely on others who really are experts in different facets of economic development. And what we do then, obviously, is we contract with them for their services. Here's a listing of the agencies we contract with out of economic development. The new one this year is Dubuque Winter Farmers Market. We're happy to recommend supporting them at a $15,000 level. We are one of very few communities in the United States that has year-round farmers market. We've supported Dubuque Main Street for quite a number of years. They run the summer market, so we're hoping that you'll accept the recommendation to support the Winter Farmers Market as well. Quite a few of our contracted service agencies you'll see have requested, and we're supporting an increase in helping them with their operational costs as well. So here's a listing of our improvement packages. We're looking to get a laptop for our intern to promote remote work. $20,000 for grant application prep. There's so much money coming down from the federal level. We have to be ready for it. And staff has been meeting very often and regularly to make sure that we're aware of all the opportunities. This is some cash up front to be able to pay for grant writing services. When we identify something, you don't necessarily have a line item in your budget where you can, pay for some grant writing services. So this would dedicate some money specifically for that effort, whether it's for infrastructure or brownfields grants, whatever it may be. An AmeriCorps Teen Creative Engagement Specialist will be working with Jenny to engage the youth in our community. Then we've got the listing of the different contracted service agreement improvements, which are Dubuque Area Labor Management Council, Greater Dubuque Development, Dubuque Dream Center, the Fountain of Youth, Dubuque Main Street, Community Foundation's Project Hope program, and the Winter Farmers Market. Our capital improvement projects include our downtown housing creation grants, workforce development, which is funding that goes to Greater Dubuque Development as well to support their work as a liaison with the private sector, as well as then through them for some of the programming like Opportunity Dubuque. Our downtown rehab grant programming is the facade grants that you've seen used in the downtown. The Minority-Owned Business Microloan Initiative, I'm not doing loans, but there's an Iowa microloan program, and we've set aside this funding to help buy down the interest rate. On that program, they have a higher interest rate than local financials, but if a small business owner were not eligible for a loan from a local financial institution, they may be eligible for one from the Iowa microloan program, and this would assist minority-owned businesses with kind of mitigating that difference in cost to them by going through that program. The Central Avenue Streetscape, implementation, which would be for, we'll call them movable amenities that we could put in place, for instance, benches or trash receptacles, things to start to beautify the corridor, which was really kind of the impetus of going through that planning process, while we're waiting to sort through all the pieces and parts of one-way, two-way, truck traffic, et cetera. We want to make it look better sooner rather than later. Southport Master Plan implementation, we're augmenting this with we have some EPA Brownfields grant funding that we're also using to pay for some planning activity down in that area. Development of Dubuque Industrial Center Crossroads, that's the new 156 acres purchased out near Tamarack Park. That's what we think the costs will be in the coming years to develop that, get the sanitary, sewer, water, grading accomplished out there in order to be ready for companies to come in and develop. Central Avenue Housing Forgivable Loans, that's the pilot program that we started a few months ago. We've had one project come in to start utilizing that program. We're hoping for more. The Low Income Small Business Grant, that is the grant program. You saw a photo of individuals who received the grant last year. We plan to continue that using CDBG funding. And then finally, we have the Business Nonprofit Arts Group Assistance Program. That's funding that has come down through the ARPA funding.
Jill, could I just add one thing to that
Yes,
last
please.
slide? So on that Crossroads development for 3.3 million in FY23, so that would only be phase one. So it'd be about the first 30 acres. Of course, it makes the future phases a lot easier because you've got the sewer and water already running to the site, but the actual availability of any property based on that expense will only be about 30 acres, right?
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Performance measures. We feel like we're on track with creating jobs and increasing property values in the TIF districts, absolutely. Some of the things we want to work on more is increasing private sector investments. That's always very important, bang for buck. Increasing the number of participants graduating from Opportunity Dubuque, the number of projects assisted with our rehab grants, and the number of housing units created. That is important, important, important. We need houses. And I'm going to let Jenny speak real quickly to her performance measures.
Yeah, so the performance measures when it comes to our arts and culture work, some of the things that we feel like are on track, a lot of this is looking at our, the grant funding program. So one of them is the percentage of either the grantee locations or their primary service areas are within CDBG target areas. We feel like we're on track, that we're leveraging a lot of private and other pledged matches, both cash and in-kind, towards those special projects grant program. Places that we're looking to improve, and some of this is coming in just the data collection side of things, but some of it we're wanting to improve the level of the funding requests, that hoping to better meet what's being asked from the community to do the work and see the projects that they want to see. The number of successful applications. So one of our goals is to also increase the grant writing skills of our arts and culture organizations. And as we go into using this NEA money for an individuals program, we also want to be supporting individuals as they apply for grants to fund their projects and creative endeavors. Percentage of increase from prior year. In terms, and this is a data collection piece where we want to just know more about our organizations that we're funding, the number of jobs that they're able to offer, and how the investment that we're making is helping them to invest in more people in the community to have more jobs. And then also looking at the number of unique applications to city-issued art calls and the number of contracts we're awarding, just in that idea of cultivating and recruiting a really dynamic and diverse creative sector.
Now what you've all been waiting for. Aren't you glad we didn't stop at the first picture? Okay.
That one's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jill and Jenny. Thank you very much for the presentation. We'll go ahead and open for public comment first, please.
At this time, anyone participating in the meeting in person who would like to discuss this public hearing may approach the podium when the mayor asks if there is any in-person input for this public hearing. For all remote attendees, please enter your name and address in the chat function and state your question, or state your name and address over the phone when the mayor asks if there is any virtual input for this public hearing. Please begin your input by stating your name and address.
All right, thank you, Adrian. Do we have any public input for the Economic Development Department public hearing? Anyone virtually?
No emails received.
No input? Okay, all right, then I'll bring it back to the table. Mr. Sprank.
Thank you. Thank you, Jill and Jenny, for everything you guys have been doing. I want to touch back on that low-income small business grant. I see that number 4 in your packages wasn't approved. Is that going to, but I really want to see that happen somehow, if we could somehow make that happen. But it sounds like it kind of is happening. Can you clarify that a little bit?
Is number 4 the minority-owned?
Yes,
Grant?
that one.
All right.
Yeah.
We have the low-income business owner grant. That is CDBG funded, so we can't direct that toward a specific demographic except toward low and moderate income, because it has to reach that federal priority
Okay.
based on the funding source. The one that does say minority-owned, that is specific to any individuals who would take advantage of the Iowa Microloan Program. We could use that funding, because the funding source is from the city, not from HUD. We can use that funding and direct it toward buying down some of their interest rate, so that it would be equivalent to a loan that they could get here in town.
How many kind of hoops does a person have to jump through to qualify for those?
For Iowa Microloan,
Yeah.
no less than a financial institution. And in fact, Iowa Microloan is set up so that they do not want to step on the toes of local financial institutions. So they will only take a client if they've already been refused a loan locally.
Okay. But those are loans. Number 4 was a grant. So-
Correct.
And that's what I would
So I was
really
trying
like to
to-
somehow continue to do that.
Me too.
If possible.
Yeah.
Because
Right. And that's why it was requested, and we'll do what we can. You know, you may have noticed in the photo, even though we had to direct the funds only based on financials, we hit a demographic that we wanted to hit. So I was very pleased at how that turned out. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw more of the same. Yeah, but I can't designate that.
So Jill, though, how is that, we do have $50,000 budgeted for the low-income small business grant, so that,
That's the CDB jump, that's for the low income, but not for the minority, I thought was.
they can be minority, low-income.
Yeah, they can
right?
be, but I can't award it just because they are. They have to meet the financial threshold, be below a certain income level.
Right, but that's,
Yeah.
that's pretty much the clientele we serve. I mean, if they're bank eligible, our goal isn't to steal them from a bank.
Okay, because
Right.
I could see this $3,000 grant could go a long way to a small business, a fledgling business that's just starting out. And it seems to me like a no-brainer. It's like, we should really keep that one. I mean, and we could even make some type of caveat that this is a one-time grant, that's it. You can't come back and ask for this every year because if you can't get your business running, okay, I get it. But I would really like to find a way to continue that, because Erica Brewer is an example of like, whoa, $3,000 has clearly helped out her business and flourish, and I can see her going a lot farther, and even a lot of those other little businesses going a lot farther. So I would really love to find a way, if we could figure out how to make that happen, even if we can take something from some other pot in this package. So I'd really love to see number 4 happen. So that's all.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Spring. Ms. Farber first, yeah.
So going back to item number 4 and then also number 5, so just to clarify, the $3,000 is a grant per group, is that, or per person?
Per person.
Per person.
Per business, yeah.
And so you've got 25,000 targeted for 3,000 grants, more or less, so that'd be 8 grants?
No, there's 50,000. Which ones are we talking about?
No, it says 25 here on the related cost. It's 50,000 on the one below.
So she's referring to the one that we didn't recommend.
Okay.
That there's
25
25,000
that we didn't.
in 4 of 13.
So
Okay.
basically $24,000 for the
Right.
grant, okay. And then the one below,
One below, number 5.
yeah.
Operating support grant, that's for the arts.
and that's a
that's
program
additional.
that we already have $200,000 in.
Right, that's what I just wanted to make
Request
sure.
was to add 50,000 to
Right.
that.
I think we already have 250.
We have 250.
Okay, just wanted to make sure there was funding, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Resnick?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. So a few questions. In improvement package number 7, $122,000. I didn't see what they're actually using the money for. Is this for hiring staff specifically? Is this for Dave Lyons' services?
So in the general contracted services agreement that we have with the Greater Dubuque Development Corporation, I think the total comes out to, what, about 650,000 or 700,000
That sounds right.
that we provide to them.
Yeah.
And it's basically, it's general support for their operations. So there's very little of it that's designated to specific activities. So we do have, I think it's like 12,000 dedicated to True North and,
And there's some for marketing,
right, and
Yeah.
there's some that is only reimbursable for marketing expenses.
right?
But, so for instance, every 5 years, they do a campaign to fund their operations, and they raise the money through pledges. So this cycle, which starts, which this reflects the increase we've been asked to for the next 5-year cycle that starts next year. I think their target is about somewhere between 11 and $12 million that they're going to raise. And the way it's worked in the past is local governments, so the county and the city, is about a third of that, and then the other 2/3, so about $8+ million, comes from the private sector. Now, it used to be the opposite. It used to be 2/3 local government and a third private sector, but over time, we've been able to transition it to be 2/3 private sector. But it's generally not designated funding. It's funding that they're provided for their operational expenses. I don't know, they have like 8 or 9 employees, and, you know, they have lease space that they have their offices in and those kinds of things. In addition, we provide IT services for their organization, and they're on our phone system, so they're also operate through our phone system.
Okay, thank you. Number 8, $214,000 for sponsoring 66 Dream Center students. How did we come to that number of 66?
That was provided in the request from Dubuque Dream Center.
I see.
Based on how much they know it costs to put a child through their programming.
Do you know how many total students they have? Is 66 what they have, or?
I think they have about 200 students.
Yeah, I think the number
that sound right?
about 200, right?
Yeah.
Thank you. And I don't know how they're funding. Do Dream Center families also pay a portion of what they?
I know they fundraise. I don't know if there's a cost to the families.
Okay, thanks. And
So if I could finish that
Sure.
answer, sir, thank you. So remember, the city council supported to the tune of about $315,000 last year, a renovation of their facilities, which I think the total renovation was like $700,000 or $800,000. Because if they renovated their facilities, they qualified for child care reimbursement through the state program of $800,000 a year. And so I believe, I don't remember what date, but I think they have started qualifying for that because they finished their renovation project. So that's going to be a huge funding source for them, one that didn't exist before because their facility didn't allow, so they didn't have to offer any more services. They were already doing all the services, but their facilities didn't qualify for the state reimbursement. So our financial support helped make that happen. That's a big way they fund theirs. But both 8 and 9, and I think 10, these are the requests from our partners, the amount they requested. And in the case of 8 and 9, we're not recommending funding the total request, but in the case of 10, we are recommending funding the total request from the partner.
I see. Thank you. And I guess I'm wondering about the term recurring. Does that mean that for the foreseeable future, we plan to sponsor 66 students? We we plan to, you mentioned that the new goals for GDDC, and that we're working and continuing that. So when you say recurring, do they come back every year as an improvement package, or are they, after this year as an improvement package, and it says recurring, they're going to be in the mix? And
Be in the budget, right? So let's go back to number 8, which is the Dream Center. So their request was for 214, so in the current fiscal year, we provide them $50,000. Their request was to make it a total of $214,000 to sponsor these 66 students. But we're only recommending $10,000 additional, so they still would get the $50,000 they get now, plus $10,000. So in fiscal year '23, they would get $60,000, but not $214,000. So we're not recommending to fund their total request, but then the rest of your question was correct, is then that would be $60,000 a year that they would get without it appearing as an improvement package.
I see. Good. Okay, thank you. So number 13, the $15,000 for the Dubuque Winter Farmers Market. Do we also fund it at any level, the summer farmers market?
Yeah, through our support of Dubuque Main Street.
I see.
That's part of their operating expenses
Okay.
generally.
Thank you. And did some of these things that we are using for improvement package, did they used to be part of the purchase of service program?
There's contracted service and there's purchase of service, and the ones that come out of our department are contracted services, and you probably know more about purchase of service, Corey.
So they are separate.
That's correct.
Okay. I just see some of these names have moved from one category to another then.
I don't know if they've moved. I don't know if they were at one time in purchase of service. I don't remember that if they were.
Okay.
They ended
I
up
could be
in contract-
misremembering.
I'm sorry. They ended up in contract services when the mayor and city council made them priorities in both the case of Fountain of Youth and the Dream Center. And I believe it was 2 years in a row the council made them a priority.
Right.
And so then they ended up in the contracted services.
Fountain of Youth.
And that's also when we budgeted for their capital costs.
Okay, Fountain of Youth Dream Center, and the Heart Program, they've been all wonderful. And so I'm just wondering what the terminology means and where these numbers come from. So thank you very much for the explanation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Russell?
Thank you. I thought I heard you say there were 800 graduates of Opportunity Dubuque. Is that what
Since
you
the
said?
inception,
And it
77
was-
this past year.
And so when did that program start? Like 10?
Yeah, about 10 years ago, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just think that's really outstanding.
Yeah.
800 people that have moved up in their capacity to work and have childcare, and because that's part of the program, right?
It is now, yep.
And the only other thing I wanted to add was a thank you to letting us, just a reminder of how the TIF dollars will leverage so much more in the public investment. I think that was just a really good reminder. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Russell.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I apologize. I missed a public comment pop up. Would you mind if I read it into the record?
Oh, please do, yes.
Thank you. So this comment comes from Danielle Stoll of 1667 Jackson Street, and she would like to say that I think what this department does with such a small number of staff is really incredible. They accomplish so much, and as a small business owner myself, you can tell how invested they are in helping entrepreneurs succeed. And as a farmers market manager, I'm really excited to see the recommendation for funding for winter market next year. I would encourage council to consider having a funding line item that all permitted markets can apply for to cover a portion of operating costs. Most other markets around the city operate solely on volunteer power, and having even a small amount of operating costs covered would help them keep booth fees lower for farmers. This is often the only source of market income, and supplementing that could have a huge impact in supporting local producers. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for doing that, and thank you, Ms. Stoll, for chiming in there. We really appreciate your public comment. Mr. Sprank, did you want to return to your point? I was going to come back to you because
Yes, I
you
would
seemed like
like
you wanted to
to-
talk more about that.
Yeah, I would definitely like to figure out a way that we could figure out how that number 4 could happen. I just think it's it's a no-brainer. It makes a lot of sense. It's a one-time grant. And if we could just figure out, maybe one of the other groups maybe one of the big other ticket items can survive getting a little less, so we can make this happen, I would really think it would make sense to me.
So to clarify, you're asking to hold number 4 for
Yes.
separate discussion? Okay, okay. So is Mr. Jones still with us that you can see on there?
Yes.
He is, okay, all right. Mr. Jones, can you hear us? Are you able to chime in? Because it wasn't.
No, I just lost him.
Lost, okay, yeah. I was wondering if he was still there. So with that said, if he's able to join us, he can be a part of this, but I guess I would poll all of us to see if we would be able to, or do we have discussion first before?
May I ask a qualifying question, because I'm not sure I'm understanding whether it's a one-time grant or if it's a recurring future budget item? So he's talking about the
I mean,
one-time
Mr.
grant.
Sprank's question or
Yes.
the program?
So my question is, it's a $3,000 grant to potentially 8 people, okay, more or less, and it says recurring. And Danny just mentioned that it was a one-time grant. So I just wanted to get a qualification as to the use of funds. Is just this year, or is it something that once we continue with it, then it becomes part of the budget cycle?
It would, if it's an improvement package that gets approved, then it becomes part of our operating. So that sense of it, it's recurring. My understanding of your question was, is it a one-time grant for that individual? They can only apply once.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you for that qualification. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Okay, so process question, and it's unfortunate Krena's not here for this one. I received a text from Mr. Jones saying that he can hear me, and he's texted me and he said, I'm here, but he's unable to speak to us. I guess even though this isn't, we do these straw polls, I mean, I want to make sure that we're all able to be a part of it. Can I receive Mr. Jones's text to be able to?
As long as you tell us what it is and read it to us.
Okay, absolutely. All right. So, Mr. Jones, I hope you heard all that. So in that case, let's go ahead and see around the table who would be willing to hold this for separate discussion for later on.
Mr. Mayor, did you say there might be some discussion?
Oh, yeah, absolutely, Mr. Resnick.
All right, thank you, because I'd be interested in, there's lots of great programs that Mr. Van Milligan considers, and he either says yes or no, so I would like to hear why he would say no. And this sounds like what I've heard from the table so far, set up a grant program where you would choose some and don't choose others for funding, which is a lot of work. And so I would just ask Jenny about that. So that there's just a lot more to it than why don't we just do this while we all put on a show and, that kind of attitude. There's a lot that goes into it. So Mr. Van Milligan, if you wouldn't mind, I mean, it might have been a tough decision to say yes or no to this, but would you mind letting us know what you were thinking?
Sure, thank you. And Jennifer, maybe you could give me the number. How many improvement package, the value of the improvement package requests that we received? 2 or 3 million?
That was like 2.7 million.
And how many am I recommending? Do you know?
It was like 1.7 million.
So we left about over $1 million on the cutting floor. And the reason to do that is because you only have so much resources, and so you have to make a lot of tough choices. I understand the point about this being a great program. I couldn't agree more. I think there's points that there's some other great programs that are on the cutting room floor too. I would, this happens every year. We get more requests from departments and partners than we reasonably have the resources to ask the public to give to pay for them. I would say, and I apologize for this editorial comment if it's out of line, but I hope what we don't do is go to one of our other partners and say, we're going to take the money away from you, because they had what I consider to be reasonable requests. They do good work, and I obviously recommended it, so I think we should support them at the level that I recommended. So I hope we don't go to one of those partners and take that money from them. But in fact, if the council decides to hold this till the end, you will have to find some resources to pay for it if you decide, or at least 4 of you decide, it is going to stay in the budget. And that can either, it can be taking it from some other improvement package that was recommended. Doesn't matter what department, as long as it's the right funding source, the general fund. And, or, examine the property tax levy above the recommendation.
Thank you for that. And I might add that perhaps that the economic development team is very busy. This is more work to do as well. So there's that as well. So I would like this maybe to be considered by Mr. Sansi and his group to see if that might be helpful in when he comes, does his study and does bring some more data as far as minority-owned businesses and what kind of impact this would make, just to give us some more feedback. So before we make a decision, I thank you very much for those answers.
Thank you, Mr. Resnick, and thanks for the reminder for more discussion there, too. With that in mind, do we have more discussion? Other thoughts on this before we take a straw poll on this one?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Ms. Farber.
So I'm appreciative very much of Mr. Resnick's comments, and I think that this might be a future win-win in that respect as well. Thank you.
Can I ask for clarification on the future win-win? Would you?
With Anderson's, hopefully more grants, things like that we could maybe find, or maybe some other grants that economic development or the arts group could find too.
So maybe holding it until
holding
another year to be able to
Another
look
year,
at this?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Ms. Roussel?
I would agree. I support Councilmember Resnick's insights on that topic. Thank you.
Yeah. I have the same concerns that I had when we started talking about this the other night. I think, Mike, you point out the fact that this is a difficult decision every single year. There are many, many improvement packages that are not recommended that I would love to see funded. And that is my biggest concern here, too. By the way, Mr. Jones has texted maybe next year. That's what he said. So I think, and that was right after we heard from Ms. Roussel and Ms. Farber and Mr. Resnick. I think that's referring to the idea that we could wait on this for another year. I don't know if you can see the anguish in my face as I'm talking, but this is a difficult one to say no to, and I can see your point, Mr. Sprank. I think that the ability to fund this would be wonderful. The concern that I have is we still have, I believe, 3 more budget hearings, and we already are over what we decided we were originally going to do, or at least over the original recommendation, I should say, from the city manager based on what we're already working with. So with that said, I'll just explain. I think that's the reason that I would not suggest that we put this one back into the package, or back into the budget. So that'll be the way that I vote. So with that, I'll go ahead and call for the vote. Those who would like to keep this for separate discussion later on in the process. Mr. Sprank, that's fine, yeah. All right. So that's 1 vote for and the rest against, so that will not be kept for separate discussion. Yeah. Thank you, though, Mr. Sprank, for bringing up the discussion, and thank you, everyone, for having this discussion. I think it's an important one to have. Well, and I've got a no from Mr. Jones, just for the record there. Okay, so with that, thank you very much for the presentation, for the wonderful photos that you included in the presentation, and for everything that you do. One of the things that's great about your department is that what you do is visible, oftentimes. When you think about arts and culture, it's what we see, it's what we hear, it's what we experience. When you think about economic development, we see the development happen. But a lot of the things that do happen are not things that are visible, and it's a lot. I think one of the things that has happened with me recently is I'm serving on more boards throughout the community, and I feel, Jill, like I see you all the time now. Just because you're on those as well. You're with Dubuque Initiatives, you're with GDDC, you're doing a lot of these different things. So thank you for all the work that you do.
Of course.
And I believe that brings us to the end of the evening, so with no more business on the agenda, we will stand adjourned.